We're live, Dale.
We're
Hey,
here.
everybody.
Yeah.
We are here. Everybody, welcome to Self Publishing Insiders, where today it is my privilege, honor. I'm so stoked to welcome my buddy, Dale L. Roberts, to the show. Welcome, Dale.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's always a pleasure getting to chat with you. You and I are good buddies. Obviously, we're blowing up each other's texts on a daily basis. So I'm just tickled because remember, we were chatting about this, 1 year ago, and I do
At
not
least, yeah.
exaggerate.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, and Dale and I were trying to keep each other in check, like before we, backstage in the green room, we're like, okay, well, let's not talk about this and let's not talk about that because we know we'll spend the next couple hours just going down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But what can I say about Dale Roberts? If you don't know Dale yet, you need to, because Dale has earned a spot for himself as the trusted go-to guy for the indie publishing community. Uh, whether it's breaking news or product and service reviews, his thoughtful interviews and really deep dive assessments of service providers and tools for indies are truly unmatched. He's now got dozens and dozens of books published, 900 plus videos now, Dale. I was reading, I'm like, 900 videos? No wonder your videos are so good. He's got well over 100,000 subscribers now across his channels and millions of views. Simply, Dale is just this passionate, super positive, tireless advocate for indies authors everywhere. So we're going to talk about all of those things, but today we're going to put a special emphasis on Dale's brand new self-publishing series of books, which is essentially a roadmap for indies to kind of guide you along the path of publishing from beginner to advanced and even beyond that. So again, Dale, so glad that you're here.
Hey, thank you so much. Right out the rip, I'm just going to go ahead and correct you on something. It's
Oh, man.
1,600 videos between two channels.
All right, then you need to update.
No, that's not your fault. Like there's just so much to manage. The funny thing is there are some people that either discover my podcast or they discover my main channel and they don't realize that there's one or the other. And sometimes they get confused. Big shout out to Tom McAuliffe. I think he was one of the very first ones that like, where are you at? What are you doing? I don't know where you're supposed to be. So that's why I ended up separating those two channels, and where it's the branding is Dale L. Roberts on the main channel and then the Self-Publishing with Dale podcast, which to differentiate between the two, Dale L. Roberts, high production value, very well produced videos. Whereas with the podcast, it's more raw, kind of like what you and I are doing, where we're able to riff and just go a little bit off script. That's just kind of a way that I love to connect with a lot of the indie authors and get a better pulse. It's so much fun. Like I think, and people are watching right now in the live chat, like nothing beats having a live broadcast and being able to have this value exchange between yourself and the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me, what lights you up about indie publishing and about our community? Because you're always lit up.
There is so much that I have to be excited for. I think a lot of the reason why I get so excited is this is like my boyhood dream. It is my boyhood dream. Really? Since I was a kid, I'd always wanted to be an author, but I was also very independent as a kid. And even my mother reflects back, like when I was a kid, I would, try to write and publish my own books. Like that was like, I was doing indie publishing as a kid. Heck, I even had some featured pieces in the local newspaper when I was in high school. And it got me some great attention, a lot of adoration. It was really cool. Then I got into college and it just took the wind out of me. Like, I think, everybody knows that college ain't easy. And so I got babied going through all of school. And as soon as I got into college, it really took my love out of it. So when
I got put into that factory setting, like you need to write this way and about these things.
Yep. I found out like really quick. I think it was like one of my very first papers that was due in my English class. And I think I literally failed. I just got this paper back and I handed it in with pride. I was like, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. And then I got this paper back and I was like, oh, what? My writing's bad. And it was shocking to me. I don't think I think it was just a lot of what I experienced as a kid. I thought that I was better than what I was. And I think when I got into, being an adult, and of course, about 10 years ago when I broke into this business, I was a lot more understanding. I was a lot more willing to hear that criticism and that feedback, because it's never easy hearing people say your work's not good. But if you can kind of take that feedback and try to apply it to your writing and adjust from there, that's great. But why I get so passionate about indie publishing is, I stumbled into this whole YouTube game just by accident. To be honest, I just did a couple of interviews. I got a little bit of attention. And then rather than spending a lot of times doing social media DMs and emails, my easiest solution was to produce videos. So that way, anytime someone asked something, I just send them to a video.
Did you have a background in it before?
No, not. I did videos before, but I mean, who hasn't? It wasn't one of those things I took very seriously. And it wasn't until about a year into things that I really started drawing those parallels between self-publishing books and self-publishing videos that it hooked me. I love the process. And then part of that love came from the viewer feedback. A lot of viewers that were saying, hey, because of you, I did X, Y, Z. Because of you, I launched my book. Because of you, I sold 12 books per day as opposed to none. There are so many of these different testimonials that I get through viewer feedback that it's what makes me passionate. It's why sometimes when I receive breaking news, I drop everything I'm doing. I skip the gym, I jump right online, and I'm going live right away. I love this business inside and out. You're going to see a lot of YouTubers in this business. It's not to take anything away from them or to make them seem inferior, but some of them are just here for the paycheck. For me, sure, the paycheck's great, but I love this business. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to be chasing the next freaking, crypto bro or, any of these other, business models. Indie publishing to me is where my heart is, and it will remain.
Well, it shows, Dale. I mean, we all know that. You mentioned your passion for following the news and then helping to be a part of breaking news. And that's one of the things that blew me away with your videos right off the bat. It's like, how can you take news that literally broke minutes ago, digest it, get on the line with a couple of CEOs, ask super thoughtful questions, not just like reading from the press release, like you're just on it. Yeah. So again, everybody out there who's watching this live, or if you're going to watch it in the future, the man is very detail oriented and does these deep dives.
It comes with lots of practices, as you kind of mentioned. With 900 videos on the main channel and over 600 on the other one, the 600 that you see representative over on the podcast, I think is where I've really cut my teeth and got to understand just a little bit better about how to better and more effectively communicate. Because viewers will tell you when you're off. Like, trust me, like you've probably seen some comments, I'm sure, here on Drafted Digital where you're like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. It's always perfect, right? But it's really helped me develop how I can speak, and I'm far from perfect. That's going to be the thing is, and this is where it's so applicable to authors as well. Is just think about some of these lessons as an author and how you can apply that. Some of the negative criticism that you can get. What can you do with that in order to make yourself a better author? I think this is a good point for me to kind of point out. Good friend of yours and mine, of course, here of Drafted Digital, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. What a legend, by the way. The man freaking founded Kobo Writing Life. Get out of town. And now he is actively working as an advisor for Drafted Digital, and for good reason. He just freaking graduated college. What are you joking? Are you kidding me? He got a master's in creative writing with a specialty in publishing. I was like, you do realize like you've been doing this since the 90s. I think you should be teaching these classes. But I think it all just illustrates the fact that you should always be learning. And this is a huge reason why Mark is just one of my, he is one of my top biggest heroes. I love the man because he lives this business. He breathes this business. He sleeps this business, everything about it. It is the pure essence of Mark Leslie Lefebvre. And hopefully
and his experience dabbles into several different, from book selling to publishing and beyond.
He's so stinking good at it. So yeah,
Yeah.
and even to just further illustrate, the man just graduates college, he gets married, and then he goes and relaunches a 20th edition, a 20th year anniversary edition of one of his books. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, try to keep up with Mark Leslie if everybody, because if you could do that, I tell you what, you're on the right track.
For sure. You started publishing back in 2014,
Yeah.
self-publishing. So a couple of questions out of this. Was traditional publishing ever in your head? It's like, well, maybe I should pursue that route. And then after you started publishing, at what point did you realize like, hey, I can help other authors do this?
Yeah, traditional publishing never ever crossed my mind because I was literally just holding a day job when the opportunity to write my own book came about. My corporate wellness coach had saw that I was very passionate about health and fitness. So she said, "Hey, why don't you write a book about it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I should." And of course, the inner kid in my head is ready to just, go bonkers.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going and writing that with the only intent of just going to like a local print shop, having it printed off and just give it to friends and family. That literally was the end of it. And this is something I shared in my first book in this 8-part series was I approached my wife about getting this offset printing done. And it was about a $1,200 ticket. And it was like, that was the minimum I had to spend. And I remember thinking in my like delirious, like just deluded mind, like, oh yeah, she'll be cool with $1,200. That's a
Why wouldn't
hard
you?
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to look for alternatives. And that's when I had stumbled over the platform of CreateSpace. Rest in peace, CreateSpace. That was just a free way for me to distribute my books. And it was just icing on the cake that it ended up being that it distributed to Amazon in all these different regions. So when I started seeing I was making money from these things, that's when my brain goes, oh my gosh, I can make a living from this.
Were you surprised by that your book started selling?
I was.
Or did you know you were onto something?
I think I was surprised, but I guess it shouldn't have surprised me much since it was primarily friends and family, but then there was just some organic sales. So I think knowing that there was organic sales involved, that was enough proof of concept. Like, hey, if I can just do this part-time, what would it be like if I go full-time into this? And I literally put my 30-day notice in with my employers. And I loved my job, by the way, just loved it to death. But as far as when I pivoted to information in the self-publishing space, it was, like I said, all by accident. I did a couple of different YouTube interviews that ended up bringing in some attention. They pretty much interviewed me about my first biggest best-selling book, An Ultimate Home Workout Plan Bundle. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and do it. I was excited that someone was willing to interview me and get me to where I could promote my book. And little did I know that it would bring in not necessarily fitness fans, but it brought in fans of self-publishing, of wanting to know, like, hey, how did you do this? What was all the processes like?
Yeah.
So it was all by accident. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I'll get on YouTube and I'm going to be able to be the next PewDiePie, because PewDiePie was the big thing at the time. Naturally, I found out really, really quick that was not the case. And it's taken me let's see here. We're on 8 years now, over 8 years of being on YouTube, and the main channel is getting ready to pass. I know it's already over 97,000 subscribers. So it's getting ready to hit that 100,000 subscriber milestone. Thank you so much. And I feel very fortunate in that I got that type of attention and I got that type of leverage and platform. So I'm forever thankful and forever grateful to folks like Drafted Digital, because you guys have always been great ambassadors. Folks like Book Award Pro have, been Mibble Art cover design. They've all just been so great in just being ambassadors. I should say Dibbly Create, darn it. If I'm going to mention, some folks that have been really, really good, and there's been so much more, but having that, those cheerleaders supporting me all the way has been instrumental in me continuing this little journey. Because I'm going to tell you this, that there are days that it's challenging as a video content creator. It really is. You'll pour your heart and soul into a video.
I remember, if you don't mind me mentioning, I remember there were a couple of times where we talked kind of offline. And for those of you who don't know, like, Dale is a perfectionist. And when something starts to go sideways, he feels it personally.
It can be tough, and this is let's putting aside like troll comments and things like that. Some days I'm good, other days I'm not. Like I'm not, you know, inhuman. I am
I was
definitely,
just gonna say,
I've
you're a
got
human being.
emotions. They can be, it's definitely hurt.
Mhm.
Although it's always funny whenever someone just like, nice bald head. I'm like, do you not realize that I've consciously chose this? Like I have shaved it like, what are you doing? But you know, you get sometimes those comments that cut real deep. Like it really is tough. And then
Yeah.
again, you pour your heart and soul into a video only for it to flop. Or for that matter, having like an egregious error. I've had some errors in my videos, and some people have been very quick to point it out. One of them, gosh, was, let's see here. I was doing a live broadcast talking about Findaway Voices, I think it was. And rather than saying 50% for Spotify distribution, I said 80%. And yeah, Will Dagus, the head of Findaway Voices, got a hold of me. He's like, hey, love your enthusiasm. It's great. Always, man. Gosh, the video is great. But it's 50%, not 80%. And I was like, literally my brain goes to like, you know, red alert. I'm just freaking out. I go to delist the video and I go and correct it. But by that time, like the damage was done. There had already been like thousands of viewers within a couple of hours. And I had to upload it again and the video tanked. It was like, oh no.
Yeah, after all that work. Yeah.
So yeah, perfectionism sometimes gets the best of me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one thing that you mentioned that I want to make sure everybody heard, and that is, when you started saying yes to these interview requests and these YouTube requests, and even today, I think it was today or last night, I was just kind of checking out your website, and you're like, hey, if you want to talk to me online, if you want to set up an interview, it doesn't matter. I'll talk to anybody. I'm open-minded. You're just so accessible.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't kind of like these things happen by chance. You've made yourself accessible and open to other people.
I try to lead by example in so many regards, but please understand, folks, that I am human and I will make mistakes. But one of the things I always say is the important part about marketing and promoting your books is about being visible. Be as visible as possible. Now, if you happen to be someone who wants to be anonymous, you just have to be a little bit more creative with how you become more visible. But being visible is super easy for me. I've already got the setup. I've got the camera. I've got the microphone. I've got the internet access. Everything's good to go. I can see about doing interviews for audio podcasts and video podcasts because it's a great way for me to sit here and turn around and go, hey, have you checked out my latest book, Self-Publishing for New Authors, book 1 of the 8-part series? And second part just came out today called Advanced Self-Publishing for Authors. Unfortunately, I don't have a hard copy in front of me at the moment, but this is one of the best ways to become more visible. And so this is why I am accessible as I am. I think I've done up till about the last month, I've done nearly a dozen different interviews. I'm getting anywhere and I'm getting everywhere. It's like, I am not going to turn down any opportunity, whether a person has 1 viewer or someone has 1 million viewers. I'm going to get there because to me, I think that every last bit of exposure helps to kind of get me in front of the right people. So that way people are able to buy my books. But it's not going to be perfect. Just be prepared, because if you've never been on camera, don't expect to get on and be like, oh, I'm going to be just like Dale. And you show up and you're like, what I do with my hands,
That's how you learn. You have to jump in and suck for a while, and embrace the suck, embrace the challenge. You're not going to be perfect the first time, but that's how you learn. And over time, you'll get more and more comfortable. And then one day you'll surprise yourself, because you'll find yourself, instead of being afraid for that next YouTube opportunity or that next speaking gig, you'll find yourself looking forward to it. That's what happens. It happens naturally. Before I forget, though, I want to go back a bit. That first book that you published, and it's going to cost you $1,200 to print physical copies of that book at your local print shop.
Yeah.
Now, you were all excited. This is your baby. I'm going to put it out in the world. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this book out. And your wife's like, hey, hold on a second. And I want to stop there for a minute, because I've noticed through my years at Draft Digital and my life at Smashwords prior to Draft Digital, what I've seen oftentimes is that, especially for the newer authors, there's such an intoxication when it comes to getting that first book out or those first books out. And I've seen too many authors fall in that trap of I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that book out. even if it's paying thousands of dollars to some vanity press out there.
Oh, yeah.
Do you
Vanity
have any
presses.
cautionary tales? Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that'd be a perfect segue into talking about the first book,
Yeah.
and the pragmatic roadmap that you have, and throughout the entire series, but starting with book one.
I think the most important lesson that any new author needs to realize is do not rush getting into the business. Now, if you become a bit more experienced and you've launched some books, you can, rush it as much as you want to, because you're going to know, you have the expectations and you will know exactly how it turns out. But for anybody that's new, take your time, do your research. I actually had a very great comment on my channel that I've been holding on for the last couple of days to answer, because I feel like it deserves a full video. But it's a new author. This person had just published their book. They are overwhelmed. They're like, I got to do keywords and newsletter swaps, and I have to do QR codes in the back of my book,
Exactly.
and I have to do this and I have to do that. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, slow down. Slow down. If you're already a new author and you've already got your book out, pause, relax for just a moment. Just realize, and this is something I always remind myself, and it seems very hyperbolic when I say it, but it's so important for everybody to understand this. And I'll give you a little bit of context, because I think everybody can relate to this certain situation here. Is if no one's going to die, I think you're going to be good. If no one's going to be hurt, I think you're going to be good. Just know that there is no perfect book launch. There is no perfect marketing and promotional plan. There is no one size fits all type situation for everybody's different book. So that's why it's so important. You pump the brakes, take it slow, investigate things. And especially when it comes to parting ways with your money. Jim mentioned vanity presses. Like, I am 1000% against vanity presses. I am just vehemently against them, because the fact that they are just in the business for taking your money. They're not in the business for getting your book in front of more people. They're not in the business of, they're all about earning your money. That's it. Now, we could probably go down this whole path of vanity presses, but what I'd recommend is go over to authorbeware.org and Victoria, excuse me. Yes. Thank you so much. Go over to Writer Beware. Victoria Strauss has so many great articles about vanity presses that's going to absolutely just curl the nostrils, a little bit. You're like, oh, good Lord. Yeah, vanity presses are ugly, but take your time if you're going to invest it. Now, here's the nice thing is I published a book, and I've published many books since, that didn't cost me a single dime. Didn't cost me a dime. Now, is this 100% possible for everybody? Absolutely. Is it going to be perfect upon launch? Probably not. I mean, my first book was Bowling Shoe Ugly. It was nasty. Like, my mom, literally, I was like, hey, can you hang this up on your fridge? And she's like,
hey,
yeah.
Those were hip. Those were hip in the early aughts. I'm just.
Yeah, there you go. For sure. But so let me go ahead and relate just a point here. And I think it was so great. You and I were just kind of chatting today. Today is the second book launch of my 8-part series, Self-Publishing with Dale. And I got to tell you that it has turned into a train wreck today. There have been some things that should have been completed a lot sooner, but I had already had the date set. And then rather than saying, let's go ahead and postpone things, I went ahead and pushed forward, because 1, nobody's going to die. Okay. And 2, I've got some of it done. The whole thing is about showing up. So with that being said, there were the interior formatting for the print cover wasn't done. For the print edition wasn't done. And it should be done within the next day. But unfortunately, that means that it's going to be delayed so much more that I'll get the print book out as soon as I'd like. Audiobook is still further down on the roadmap. That's not one of my top priorities. My top priority was ebook, print book. So it was like literally 0 hour last night when I got the ebook version, at least got that launch, because I knew I was coming into this interview today. And again, it's not the perfect launch. That's why I say sometimes, yeah, you can watch and follow along with me, but just understand that I'm going to make mistakes from time to time. I will make mistakes. I promise you. The same is going to go with you. Just be okay with it. Remember, though, later on down the line, any lesson that you were able to derive from this. So for me, I think it's just understanding, like, where is my launch schedule and what are going to be the necessary actions to make sure that I have enough runway that all of these things are going to be ready to go within the next month, which, fingers crossed, we should be set for the next,
Right.
book launch, which will be for advertising for books where I talk about Amazon advertising. But I felt like, yeah, you weren't looking for that answer, but I wanted to kind of give something a bit more broadly encompassing and let everybody know, just because you see a guy on YouTube doesn't mean that he has all things together.
Dale, you're underscoring a through line that's,
Yeah.
if no one's noticed, you're underscoring a through line that began at the very beginning of this chat, and that
Yeah.
is imperfection is okay. Things are going
Yeah.
to happen. Plan for Murphy's law, because it's going to rear its ugly head.
It will.
And sometimes perfect isn't. I mean, you don't want to kind of push out the humanness of your work and your words and what you're trying to gift to the world out there.
Yeah. I do the best that I can. And that's really about all I expect of any other author out there, is do the best that you can.
Yeah, do the best that you can. And if it's not perfect, let it go. It's going to be okay, everybody.
Yeah.
Dale,
Go ahead.
oh, all right. Well, when you're thinking about these books and this new series, we already talked about, there's a lot of information out there for self-publishing. So when you began thinking about the series out there, what was the gap that you felt like, you know what, I need to take the reins on this because something's missing here, and I'm the guy to fix it. I think that you are. So what did you see out there that was missing?
To me, I think it's easy to find this out because of the number of followers that I have through social media and through YouTube. So I can't say necessarily that I can't take all the credit for that. It's because people are really literally just handing me like things. Like, for instance, in Discord yesterday, I polled my entire, 1,000 authors over there about future videos that I want to kind of cover. And they're able to kind of sort out what they like and what they don't like. And I'm paying really, really close attention, because
Yeah.
there are sometimes I believe that authors want to learn about something and they don't. Prime example, my first 3 books in the Amazon Self-Publisher series. The first one was Amazon Keywords for Books, one of my best performing books of all time. Love the book. it's my baby. The second book was Promotional Strategies for Books, and the third one was Amazon Reviews for Books. Now, here's the funny thing. I truly believed that the market wanted to see and learn more about marketing and promoting their book with various strategies. That is the worst performing book of the series. That's not to say that it's just horrible by any stretch. It's a great read. I'm very proud of it, but unfortunately, it just did not resonate with the audience. Now, full disclosure, going into 2025, that entire series is going to get a second edition and a whole new rework. And I think one of the things is changing out the title and the cover, so that way it's a bit more suitable and it is more enticing. And I think that's probably where I missed the mark. And so that's where it's, understanding your market and working towards that direction. So I think there's some fiction authors that might be watching this right now and saying, okay, what does this do for me, Dale? I don't understand. Like, how do I know? Literally, all you got to do is ask your audience. Now, if you don't have an audience and you're brand new to things, one of the greatest ways to do it is look up anybody that's within your niche on YouTube. Go over to any reviews on Goodreads, Amazon, Kobo, any number of those different things. Pay attention to the reviews, because they're going to tell you what they like and what they dislike. The like things, you need to remember to continue to shine a spotlight on those type of things. But the things that were disliked, that right there is an area of opportunity that you need to absolutely attack. And so that's where I've just kind of discovered that gap in the market, is going through, polling my audience. Also, the audience that I'm not currently serving, the ones that are, say, for instance, reading David Gaughran's books or Joanna Penn's books or Mark Leslie Lefebvre's books. I'm really trying to pay attention, because I'm going to learn what they like, what they dislike, and then try to fill that gap. And so that's one of the things why I ended up, working on this entire 8-part series, is that I was trying to identify gaps in the market. And the next book coming up is, going to be about Amazon advertising. And sure, there's a number of books out there, but I did notice with some of the lower reviews where I'm like, ooh, so I need to cover this, 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 and this. And this is what they were missing from here. And I'm already doing X, Y, and Z. So we are good to go. So the same is going to work for fiction authors, is still looking, study that market. I know you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself that you've got to sacrifice your muse. No, you don't. Absolutely, you don't need to do it. But it will challenge you in a new way that might even be able to enhance that muse that's within you if you really pay attention to your readers. Now, if you've got an email list, there you go. You're gold. All you got to do is just talk to them. That's literally what email lists are about, is building that direct relationship with your readers. And if you're not currently doing an email list, I highly recommend, if there's any one piece of marketing advice that I want to give to everybody out there, is build an email list.
Yeah.
So it's so critical to the lifeblood of
Our
your
viewers
business.
are probably getting sick of us saying that week in and week out, but that's how important it is.
It truly is. It absolutely, it's a game changer. It's, I can't say enough about email marketing. And I think that there's a lot of overwhelm sometimes with people, is they're kind of like, oh, I don't know what to say. I don't know what services I need to do. I don't know how many times to do it per month. Just treat your email list like a conversation like Jim and I would have.
Totally.
If I'm excited about something, I share it with Jim. I'll be like, hey, dude, you got to check out this video. Oh my gosh, you got to check out this latest, song.
And he does it all the time.
Yeah, I do. That's going to be the thing.
And I appreciate it, though.
Treat it like a relationship with this person. And if you don't know what to say, then you got to still have something to say right there. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. All you got to do is, hey, I don't know what to say lately. What are some things that you could probably expect from me to send out into this newsletter? I always recommend communicate with them on a monthly basis, or at least a monthly basis. I go for at least once or twice per week, but I've set those expectations with my subscribers.
Well, I think your advice on reviews is kind of counterintuitive, to check out those negative reviews, and because I think we all kind of have this, we don't know, I don't want to look at that. Yeah. But it's so eye-opening. And your advice to even check out the reviews of other authors in your genre, I think that's super. Like, I've heard about, like, pay attention to your negative reviews, because sometimes you're going to find nuggets of wisdom in there. I haven't really heard anybody say no, but you also check out others in your genre. That's excellent advice.
There's a great tool out there, actually two good tools in my opinion. Obviously, Publisher Rocket's fantastic for doing market research. Mm-hmm. It does come at a higher premium these days, but it's so worth it if you have the discretionary expense. And the other tool that I've just stumbled over in the last year is called Dibbly Create. Dibbly Create actually has a market analysis tool that will scrape all the reviews and provide you all the strengths and weaknesses that you're able to build off of, and relevant keywords. Yeah. So having those things, and it's really cool when you get those relevant keywords, you can pump it into something like Rocket, look for proof of concept through there, and then you're able to kind of go. It's really kind of just revolutionized my full workflow. But yeah, I really love Dibbly Create for that reason. By the way, they're not paying me to say this, nor are they paying Draft to Digital on anything like this. I personally use this for the market research, and especially with my latest publications that I'm going in and just really starting to study strengths and weaknesses. But if for some reason you don't have the discretionary expense to get any of those tools, that's totally fine. I've given you at least the basic old school way of doing things.
Appreciate that. Yeah, maybe we'll have them on the show one of these days.
That'd be great.
With your book series, self-publishing for new authors is the first book in the series. It's very pragmatic. You walk authors through, like, here are the things you need to do to get that first book out there. Book number 2 released today, right? Was it yesterday, or it's today, isn't it?
It is officially today. Yeah, you are this is a launch party, buddy. I didn't know. Did you bring any tacos and ice cream?
Always have tacos and ice cream.
Absolutely, me too. So hopefully everybody else brought some as long. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to pretend it's up here.
So book 2 is advanced self-publishing for authors. And it takes everything that you present in book 1 and just cranks it up several notches.
Yeah, the funny thing is, book 1 and 2 were originally one book altogether.
Oh, really?
Then I realized it was just too dense for a nonfiction book. I was going to lose a lot of people. So that's why I had to kind of separate. So you will notice that advanced self-publishing for authors is, I would say, about 20% shorter than the self-publishing for new authors. And it was because they used to be squished together. But I think I was partway through National Novel Writing Month in 2021 when I was writing those two. I was literally like writing a full stinking novel, and it was like partway through that I'm like, oh boy, this is too much. If a new author were to open this up, they're going to be so overwhelmed. There's way too much. I need to kind of just separate the two So that way they know when I'm done with book 1, I can move to book 2 rather than being stuck on book 1 like you're reading Dune or War and Peace. It's just going to take
Right.
forever for you to get through it. You don't want that. And I don't want that. I want to make sure that I'm setting up new authors for success. And then we've got established authors as well that are like, I really don't need the new author stuff, but I definitely want to hear the more advanced tactics to growing my author business. So that's why it ended up being separated into 2 different things. It's a little bit more detailed because I keep it very basic, over in the first book. Second book, it's way more advanced. And if you don't have at least that basic understanding, that foundational elements that I teach within the book 1, book 2 is going to be like speaking gibberish to you. Because I think, when you probably came into this business, that it's overwhelming. All the different,
overwhelming. I came from the tech industry into publishing, and it was like, go. And it was like, well, where do I go? How do I learn about this? What do I do? And
the terminologies, the how we treat things, where we distribute to, what's a retailer versus a distributor, like
right.
all those things.
I'll tell you,
new
Dale,
language.
It totally is. It was terrifying, but at the same time wonderful. And what I mean by that is when you enter the community, it's at first it's like, oh my God, there's so much and information's coming at you through a fire hose. But then you start to learn, like, these people are really cool. Like, there's so many people out there who are just dying to help you, and they'll walk you through it. And I think that's what you did here with these books. I mean, just kind of reading through the first book and looking through the contents of the second book. It's like you're presenting to authors, I think, exactly what you need if you're a newer author, because you're laying it out in a roadmap. Do this thing first. And then you're going to do this thing first, and then you're going to do this thing for next, and then voila, you've got a published book. And then the next book is, okay, now you've got a published book. Here's how we're going to expand your readership.
Yep, that's exactly how the series is going, and it's going to continue building on some of those things. But the cool thing is, each one of the books can be standalone. You can pick them out a la carte. So come this time next year, you're going to see an entire series that's going to have about a dozen different publications, and you can duck in and out anytime that you want to if you're already experienced in the business. So for instance, let's just say you're not a new author. Maybe you're like, hey, Dale, book 1. That's not my thing. Amazon advertising, though, I've been really struggling. So I'm going to go ahead and get that. By the way, shameless plug, that's coming out September 15th. There's what's, I'm sorry?
I said, we'll edit it out. I'm totally kidding.
Well, yeah, we'll cut it out. We'll cut it out. Yes.
Plug anything you want.
But I want to get it to where any author can be able to duck in and out. Selfishly, I wrote the very first book as a kind of a love letter to myself from 10 years ago, where I was just struggling and I really needed that direction. And unfortunately, I came into the business about the time that there were a ton of grifters, and I learned some bad things along the way and some things that got me into trouble. And I've actually chronicled this over on my YouTube channel before, where I did stupid things for my business. And it's stuff that to this day haunts me. And I'm not very proud of things from doing the illicit, review swaps. That was not okay. I was told, hey, it's fine. Oh yeah, don't. It says it's against terms and conditions. Just ignore that. Like, no, terms and conditions aren't something you should be ignoring. Yeah, and I found out real quick the hard way, but it was essentially like me writing this letter to myself in the past and saying, okay, this is how you avoid these mistakes. These are the things that you should be doing. This is how you're keeping your business safe, things like that. Because I think you and I, we've had a good, personal conversation, as well as, the CEO of Drafted Digital, Chris Austin. We've actually had some chats about terms and conditions, stuff that just, I'm always afraid of stepping afoul of that, because people are watching. And because people are watching, they're going to follow my lead, and I don't want to lead them off a cliff. I'm not the Pied Piper here, folks. So I'm always very cognizant of that. So that's where new authors came in. And as we start to build out this series, I think a lot more people are going to be able to see, okay, Dale's not putting his information behind a giant $2,000 paywall or $897 course or anything else like that.
Right. We would pay you out for that, Dale.
Yeah, I'm literally just putting this stuff out as accessible as possible. And here's the funny thing, even if you don't have money, all right, even if you don't have money to get my books, the really cool thing is I'm distributing it through libraries by way of Drafted Digital. Yeah, you see, I got you on that one there. So
all right.
Drafted Digital,
Appreciate
you
that.
can get into the library systems. There's so many ways. Do not miss out on the opportunity for hitting library systems. Now, if for some reason you are very romantic and you're in love with KDP Select, go for it. I understand. It totally makes sense. That's fine. But if you find that's not treating you as well as it should be, might I recommend that you go ahead and consider going to the library distribution system, because I will tell you that I still, even though I have the discretionary expense to go out and buy everybody's books, I still go to libraries because it's just where my heart is. I always love libraries. Now, here's the cool thing. If your book smokes, like I love it and such, I'm just going to go buy it. But usually libraries are a great way to do it. So that doesn't cost a dime. So that's why I'm trying to make everything as accessible as possible. And I don't know if I've discussed this with you. Of course, I mentioned that I had, I'm doing audiobooks a little later down the line here.
That you're going to do that later.
The reason why it's taking a little longer is I'm actually producing each of these books into a full video course that people can be able to purchase and watch at their leisure. So if someone doesn't want to read the book via, ebook or print book, they have the video course that can walk them through, and they can even put it in 2x if they wanted to. Same thing could probably be said about the audiobooks, but audiobooks are not my strong suit. And I know I'm going to have to hire a sound engineer to mix and master all of my stuff. So I'm kind of dragging my feet, to be truthful, because the video course, I think, is going to be the next up, because to me, I mean, it's what I do 24/7. In fact, as soon as I get off, I'm actually going to produce another video from the first series.
Of course,
and,
you are.
Can't wait to go ahead and it's already recorded. I just have to sit down and do all the editing and post-production.
Cool. I'm going to bring up some comments and questions. Ready for
Please.
some?
Yeah, please. Let's do it.
Let's do it. First one here is from Layla Rose. Hi, Layla. Thanks for your question. She asks, Dale, are there particular milestones any author should work toward early in their career, or is that totally different from author to author?
You nailed it. It's different from author to author, because I never want to make anybody feel bad about what is in their heart, what their goals are for their business. So let's walk back to my original story of when I went to go and publish my book. I was merely doing it for hobby's sake. Like, I literally had no expectations. And if I continue to do it as a hobby to this day, I don't think anybody should, make me feel terrible for that, because I don't want to take it as serious as anybody else. If you are that type of author that want to do this just as a hobby and you aren't looking to make a living from it, you're just scratching that creative itch, you just want to get your book out in the world, do that. That milestone might be just as simple as me publishing this book, or me getting 1 sale of this, or 1,000 sales. So I think for you, Layla, is what resonates in your heart? And I'm asking this because I want an actual answer from you. I'm watching the chat here. Layla, what makes the most difference to you as an author? And everybody else, please answer this. What is your major milestone? What is the thing that you want to cross? What are some of the milestones along the way to that major milestone? It's, I know there's some people that are very reluctant to set goals, but it can be very beneficial. And you don't need to be shooting like crazy things like, I'm going to make $1 million sales in my first year. Okay, could we just start out with your first dollar, and then we'll work up to that first 100, the first 1,000. Now, for me, when I got into the business, my first milestone was consistently earning $1,000 per month in revenue. That was my first big milestone. I believe that that's a good metric for anybody else, because that's a good part-time living right there. If you're making about $1,000 per month, and in some areas of the world, $1,000 is going to stretch a long way. Yeah. So just think about that. Just figure out what your goals are. And I'm paying attention to the chat. Please, folks, load us up. I want to hear what your goals are. What is your major milestone? Because again, it varies from author to author. Great question, Layla.
Absolutely. And this isn't a question related to that, but Friendly One asks, will you have a written list of other sources you mentioned as an addendum to this podcast? Yes, we will. Once the podcast is complete, we'll go back through and put links to some of the things like Dibbly create that Dale mentioned, so that you guys, don't have to go searching for that stuff. We'll put it in the show notes and comments later on. Let's see.
I need to hit up Dibbly Create, man. They need to see about paying us for this spot.
Right. Yeah.
Just joking, folks. Just joking. I'm not going to do that to them.
Hey, opportunities. Question, Dale.
Angela, how you doing, Angela? It's great to see you.
What's the secret to your boundless energy? We want it.
ADHD. It's not even a joke. I didn't realize I had ADHD till I was an adult. Man, it was back in 2008. I had suffered a really bad injury in wrestling, and it shelved me, and it put me into just a spiraling depression. And I had a lot of issues, and then I ended up going and seeing a doctor about it, and they diagnosed me with ADHD, and they're like, "Hey, here's some pills," and I'm like, can I pass on those things? Is there any alternatives we can do that? So this boundless energy comes from that. I think that genetics plays a large part in it. But if you have ADHD out there, or you suspect that you do, what I would recommend is understand that you're not alone. Look for those ways that you can be able to cope. For me, ADHD is a sword. It's a double-edged sword, if you will. It can be great, but it can also be bad. Again, as I kind of said, my whole thing of, is anybody going to die from it? That's typically how it just reframes my brain. So that way I'm not freaking out as much, because I have just this, knack for blowing everything out of proportion way too much.
You get really down on yourself, like, oh, it was me. And
absolutely. It swings from one end to the next. So a lot of my systems and processes include, I have 2 separate lists that I answer to every single day. I've got my written list that I put everything I need to do throughout the course of the day. And then I have my actual digital list. So that way it's always with me and it's keeping me accountable. I write all of my goals for the next day, the night before I close up my office. It is an absolute must. I have to do that. But as far as getting that energy and such, I'm very fortunate. No caffeine. A lot of people are like, oh, I even had a few people that were like, oh, Dale, I'm like, no, never done it. Never will. I honestly, caffeine was something I cut out. Gosh, it's probably been 4 or 5 years now, because I got diagnosed with arthritis in my neck, and I knew that caffeine worked as an inflammatory agent. So I was like, it's not that important to me. I need to go ahead and just cut that out. But that's really it. And then also doing what you love, like it's that same feeling that I get, on Christmas morning and seeing all my gifts. Like, I get up and I just try to attack the day with the same enthusiasm, because every single day is, and I sound like I'm going into a self-help speech here, every single day is the present for good reason. You got to live your truth. You got to really attack the things that you enjoy, and then filter out all the other stuff, all the other noise. I hear so much negativity online and such. If you see something negative online, go away from it. It's just have it repel. Don't bring that into your life, and you'll find you're going to have boundless energy yourself. Maybe on the same level as me, maybe not. Just don't try to compare yourself to other people. Just try to compare yourself from one day to the next.
That's beautiful. I was going to ask you, can you leave our viewers with one piece of advice? And you just did that without me even asking. Let the small stuff go. I just want to remind folks where they could find you online. If you haven't seen any of Dale's videos, do yourselves a favor, and I mean that with complete sincerity. Go to Dale's YouTube channels at Dale L. Roberts and at Self Pub with Dale. We also, if you're interested in getting Dale's latest books, a couple of links for you to check out. DaleLinks.com/new authors. That's there it is. Self-publishing for new authors. There is a link where you could find that book. And then book 2 out today. The full title is Advanced Self-Publishing for Authors, and you could get it right there. I have to go through the obligatory end of YouTube stuff, Dale, as you know, because you're the pro at all of this stuff. But I just wanted to quickly remind people that if you don't mind, if you could like, share, comment, and subscribe to Self-Publishing Insiders. It helps us expand our reach out there and bring in awesome guests like Dale to share their expertise with all of you. If you want to see what our episodes are going to be about, the topics and the guests for next week and the week after that, be sure to bookmark d2dlive.com for that. And if you are new to self-publishing, or even if you've been traditionally published and you're dipping your toes into the self-publishing waters for the first time, do yourself a favor, go to draft2digital.com and sign up for a free account. Everybody, thank you so very, very much for joining us week in and week out. Dale, finally, we made it happen. How do you feel?
I feel good. I feel like it finally came full circle. We literally were talking about this a year ago because I was planning on releasing it at that time, but now that we've done it, it feels good. How about you?
It feels good. I'm glad that we finally did it, and let's not make it another year. Let's make this a regular occurrence. You know that you've got an open invitation to visit us anytime.
Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, Jim. Sincerely, time went by so fast.
It really did. It really did. And to everybody else out there, thanks again for joining us and spending a part of your day with us. Dale, I'll see you back in the green room for our tacos and ice cream. Everybody else, we'll see you next week. I'm going to leave you with a quick 30-second spot for DDD print. Bye, everybody, and thanks again.
Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created DDD Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at draftedigital.com.